WWB. Give me a pote and 2 of them $5 scratchers. Not those, lucky fives. A 20-something young black man swayed to the music pumping from his Beats headphones, resting around his neck, while he flipped through some bills at the counter of the local chain convenience store. He wore a red hoodie underneath a denim jacket, had on dark jeans and red Jordans. His hair was done in short twists, neatly laid about his head. He was a regular and a friendly kid. "What it be, Moms?" He nods at the cashier. An older, light-skinned woman with gray just starting to creep into her hair, working the register. Her tag says Tina. "You want 2 for $10 on them Newports, boy? They're on sale." "Yeah, what it be then?" $21.80. That's what's up. He tosses 2 20s on the counter and looks out the window, seeing rain start to fall outside. Damn. Tina counts out his change and passes it and looks back out the window. "Starting to rain. Are you walking?" "Yeah, thanks, Mom. See ya." "Take care." "You too." Devin Greenhorn pulled up his red hood to shield himself from the drizzle and headed out across the parking lot towards the sidewalk. He turns left and heads down a block to the covered bus stop. He stops under the bus stop shelter to light up a cigarette and decides whether or not to wait out the rain. He pulls up his Beats and takes out his phone, putting on his playlist and skipping to that song by Busta that really kicks. He nods and bobs a bit while he smokes his cigarette under the bus stop alone, enjoying his afternoon. Finishing his cigarette, Devin drops his butt on the ground and looks out at the sky, gauging how long the rain will last. A crack of thunder. The rain is falling even harder now. Deciding on making a run for it, as he only lived around the corner, Devin sprints down the sidewalk towards home. 5 minutes if I don't get caught at the crosswalk, he thinks to himself. Something in his peripheral vision makes him pause for a moment. A police car adjacent to him. He makes eye contact with the officer behind the wheel. The officer breaks eye contact and looks back at the road. Devin continues on his way, turning the corner and continuing to jog towards home. He can see his building, ahead in the distance. He was maybe a few thousand feet from the crosswalk now. A flash of blue lights and a familiar blip blip. The police car stops, just in front of him. The white policewoman steps from her car, hand outstretched, as she says something into her walkie on her shoulder. "Hold up for a minute. Why you running?" A cold lump weighed down Devin's stomach, and his mouth went dry. "I'm just trying to get home." He puts an arm up to protect his head from the rain, which is falling heavily now. The blonde officer puts her hand on her weapon and repeats, "Why are you running?" "It's raining. I'm just trying to get home. I live right... Let me see some ID." "Okay, officer. I live right there. I'm just going home. I didn't do anything." He reaches into his jacket, and the officer pulls her gun and shouts, "Hands up where I can see them!" "You told me to show you my ID," he says, now terrified, hands up in the air. "Keep your hands up!" She calls for backup and approaches Devin and asks him if his ID is in his jacket. "Yeah, right there." He points at his chest pocket before putting both hands back up. His heart was pounding in his head. The officer continues to hold her gun on him. "Can I show you my ID?" he asks. "Do you have any weapons on you?" "No, ma'am." Slowly. He slowly reaches into his pocket, pulling out his ID, pack of cigarettes falling out and landing on the ground with his change. Out of habit, he bent down to pick up what he'd dropped, ID in hand. "Hands up! Straight back up! Don't you fucking move!" she shouts, emphasizing her instructions with a jerk of her gun. 2 more police cars pull up, and now there are 5 police officers surrounding Devin, some shouting orders at him while others just watch, hands on their guns. Devin is now kneeling, head down, hands up, with one officer yelling into his ear about resisting arrest. As the blood pounds in Devin's head, he becomes lost in confusion and stress, being pushed all the way down on the ground. More police show up, and now people are standing by, watching. An officer pulls Devin's arms behind his back, and another puts his foot over his mouth and nose. He could feel gravel going up his nose and grinding against his teeth. He was scared, but he refused to struggle. He moved or did exactly as he was told, trying to avoid dying like so many before him. Before he realized it, he was on the curb sitting up, and an officer asked him for his name. I tried to give the lady my ID. I dropped it when you jumped me. Devin Greenhorn. I live right there in those apartments. This here your ID? Looks like it. I'm gonna run this. You gonna behave? Yes, sir. Stay put. Devin sat handcuffed on a curb in the rain. He had done nothing wrong, and he had cooperated with every command. He should be fine. Just stay cool. An officer heard Devin mutter to himself and approached aggressively. Say that again, punk? Just stay cool. What did you just say? Just stay cool. A sharp impact to the back of his head sent Devin face first into the street. Stop mouthing off! The blonde female officer had hit him with her baton and was standing over him. There were now at least a dozen police officers, and many people watching and recording on their cell phones. Devin's head spun, and he lay, coughing and gasping, face down in a dirty puddle in the street, hands cuffed behind him. He turned his head to try to get air and was kicked in the back, and then in the face. Stop resisting! The blonde officer yelled. His head was pushed back into the puddle while he reeled from the kick to his eyes. Stop resisting! One of the male officers who had kicked him, now kneeling next to him, hand on the back of his neck. He could not breathe, face down in the water. Devin stopped trying to comply and started fighting to survive. He tried to turn his head and found the officer holding him down. He thrashed, trying to get air. The officers surround him, blocking the view of the officer holding his head down. Stop resisting! Wondering where their boy D was, two best friends went looking for their third, who was definitely running late. Wonder if he got caught up with some honey, Ray joked to Jameer, as they zipped up their hoodies and went out the door. Yeah, or got lost, know what I mean, Jameer joked back. They spotted a bunch of cop cars and a crowd up ahead and decided to stop first and see what's going on. Approaching the back of the crowd, an officer can be heard yelling, Stop resisting! But the two young black men cannot see past the crowd. They moved farther down in order to get a better look, and Jameer lit a Black & Mild to smoke on the way to the store. Stop resisting! They could see a little now. Through the crowd, the two could see several officers surrounding a brother, who looked like he was cuffed and face down over the curb. A pair of dirty red Jordans thrashed like a break dancer, jerking and twitching. Hey man, that's D! Ray tugs on Jameer, making him drop his Black & Mild. Damn, what the... They've got Devin! They watched in horror, now realizing what was happening. What did he do? What are y'all doing? Let him up! They shouted at the officers, and soon most of the watchers were shouting, some recording on their phones. We need to put him in the car. Dale, don't kill him. The officer who had run Devin's ID said. He stood in front of Dale, the officer holding Devin's face in the water, shielding him from view. He let him have his fun. Now they needed to stop. Too many cameras. No warrants. This could be bad already. Dale reluctantly grabbed the back of Devin's pants and his upper arm and hauled him up out of the mud. He saw a pale, unmoving face and moved quickly. Get the door open. Stop resisting! The blonde officer opened the door of Dale's car and stepped back, blocking the people's view. The officers made a human wall, backing up the watchers by and jostling and threatening the few more aggressive ones. You can't do that, man! What did he do? Dale thrust the unmoving black kid into his car, closed the door, and looked at the female officer. He smiled and got into his car. Jameer yelled and cried, You can't do that, man! What did he do? Seeing them carry the lifeless-looking body of their friend like a duffel bag, tossing him into the back of the police car. He sees the dark-haired white male officer who took his friend, smile at the female officer before getting into his car, and then drives away shortly thereafter. The police offered no answers to the crowd. When asked for comment by the news, they gave none. Devin was hospitalized after being resuscitated and developed pneumonia. His condition worsened, and they resuscitated him 2 more times before he was pronounced dead. 2:42 a.m., 3 days after Devin's trip to the store for some cigarettes. Devin Greenhorn was never charged with a crime. One of his $5 scratchers was a winner, winning Officer Brianne Hart $500. Officer Dale Morgan was placed on paid leave after the station was put under pressure by local media. He has since been arrested, convicted, and fired for felony assault for a completely separate event after the attack on Devon. Note from the author. Dear reader, this story is a work of fiction based on different assaults and other crimes committed by members of police on innocent, unarmed black men. The event in this story is not real, did not take place, and is a work of fiction. K.T. Strange.